I'm Kevin Klein, City Councillor for Charleswood, Tuxedo, Westwood. The other day, we spoke at the IRPW, Standing Policy Committee, and we went there to talk about the Wellington Crescent Riverbank project. As you know, if you've been following it, and if you haven't, I'll just give you a brief update. The riverbank along the Wellington Crescent at a certain stretch between where the Rady Center is, I think it's Doncaster and Park Boulevard North, has given way, so the bike path isn't there anymore in a small little section. So they have to repair that riverbank in order to ensure it doesn't continue to grow up. Now, there was a lot of talk on this issue for a long time, and I believe wholeheartedly that the residents of that area, the neighborhood, was misled. They were misled, they were misinformed, they weren't allowed to be completely engaged in something that impacts them the most. And I have been fighting for the city to press pause on this project, multi-million-dollar project, and let's just figure out what we need to do there. Let's engage with the residents because this decision is going to last a lifetime. So let's make sure it's right. Let's make sure we've done our planning for multiple reasons. Well, recently I had learned that there's one major reason. I was contacted by an archaeologist who is experienced in this and has very strong credentials behind him, and mentioned to me that he has been trying to speak to the public works about the importance of not just going in there and doing the work that the city is planning to do, despite the fact they haven't listened to residents, despite the fact they refuse to engage the entire community properly. They have an online survey. That's not engaging. Despite all of that, I learned that there is a strong potential, in fact, a gold mine potential in the ground that relates back to the Cree nation before our time and to the Métis nation. I spoke at the committee, and I want you to take a look at what I said. Listen to or look at how they're reacting to what I'm saying, and then I'll tell you what happened. Go on quickly now to the bigger issue for me is the Wellington Crescent Riverbank project. We put a motion forward where I'm asking you to press pause on this work right now. There's been some concerns that have come up. Many residents don't feel that they have been properly heard by the City of Winnipeg. They haven't had an opportunity to properly be involved. A website questionnaire is not engagement. The city misled residents and myself, and I say that confidently. I was in the room when we talked about a different alternative that's not being considered. They talked about a traffic study and the impact and the results of a traffic study that haven't been shown to us, but didn't consider the fact that if we proceed, Wellington Crescent will be a 5-kilometer stretch of road that has zero stop signs, zero traffic calming measures, zero traffic lights, nothing. So it will become a very desirable stretch of road, I would think. We also have to consider the fact that the current plan that is being suggested to you today does not have the support of the Assiniboine Park. Did the public service tell any of you that before you are being asked to cast a vote today? Did the public service tell any of you that over 42 residents have been lodging complaints? I've received emails, calls. Has the public service given you all the detail on the Wellington River stabilization project? As you listen, I want you to ask yourself this as I tell you this next part. Don't you think this is something that I'm going to tell you that the public service should have told you? Because you're going to vote on something, and I don't know what you would base your vote on when you don't know this information. You don't know that the Assiniboine Park does not agree with the current plan because of the development of the diversity gardens. They will not be opening the Cordon entrance at Cordon and Park Boulevard, so they have very real concerns. But I learned in the research in the last 7 days that there are a minimum of 8 Métis farmsteads in the footprint of the Wellington Crescent project or adjacent to it alone. 8. Both sides of the Assiniboine River were Métis farms for miles and miles and miles. As it was explained to me, the potential for family burial plots on this footprint is very real. All of Tuxedo likely is built on Métis farmland, and in that day, it was typical of Métis to bury their loved ones on their property. It was also explained to me by an archaeologist that I spoke to, who is retired from the Government of Canada, did a lot of work with this type of research and archaeological digs, that the world is like a giant layer cake, if you can imagine that, maybe a chocolate cake for Councillor Sharpa. And each layer of earth is a chapter in our history book. Can we ignore those facts? Can we ignore and let this opportunity to read and learn from each chapter that is unearthed in that area? That's a question you're going to have to ask when you vote. What occurred in Manitoba, if you think back at our history, Selkirk settlers, the Red River Rebellion, Louis Riel, if this had happened in the United States, there'd be movies made on what happened on this land. Davy Crockett would more than likely be Louis Riel. I also found out in my research that I thought was interesting and I wanted to share with you is that there's many stories and teachings of blue-eyed, blonde-haired Cree. And they discovered this through some writings and elders passing it down. It was also due to a large number of Swedish and Finland men that came to this country, this territory at that time. I ask you to remember this. Before the written word, the only evidence that our past exists is in the ground. It's in the ground. I looked on the city website, and it says there that the city now, this was just yesterday, it wasn't there the day before, all of a sudden now agrees and acknowledges the historical significance of the site and the potential that this project may impact heritage resources. Did they notify any residents? They were answering a question online. No. Did they inform the area councillor? No. Did they inform any one of you that is being asked to make an informed vote today? Only you can answer that. Did they inform the Manitoba Métis Federation? Absolutely not. So I did. I spoke with President Chartrand to confirm that he was not consulted, and you can imagine his shock and his concern, which I'm sure we'll hear more about his disappointment very, very soon. This is going to beep, and I need about 5 more minutes, if that.
Colleagues,
suspension of the rules.
Okay, so 5 minutes. All in favor, contrary, carried.
Thank you, Chair Allard. So when I spoke to President Chartrand, he was concerned, and I know they're looking into it actively today. The city says online that it will have a heritage resource impact assessment completed. So I talked to this archaeologist who told me, will that be the same one that was not done in Councillor Allard's ward when construction was completed in front of the St. Boniface Cathedral? A significant part of our French history lays in that ground. Layers and layers of the past. No one cared enough to do a proper archaeological dig to make sure that there wasn't something very, very important beneath that ground. We may never know now. The proposed assessment is simply smoke and mirrors. It's meaningless. It is meaningless unless the public service will provide answers on the public record to these questions. Will a full impact assessment be completed prior to any preparation work, which apparently starts in 7 days, 10 days? What will the definition of the assessment be? They don't share that. What are the parameters of the assessment in terms of the amount of testing? This is a large area, over 1 kilometer long, and the width is very large.
That means your footprint for the archaeological dig needs to have many sites that are tested. What is the mitigation plan? And does the Public Service have a mitigation plan? When is the assessment taking place? They don't say that. We only have 3 months, maybe 4, of frost-free time left. And if they are planning to move the road like they say they're going to now, this work has to be done before any of that starts. That's next spring. So now we're delaying it again. How rigorous is the assessment going to be? How long will it last? What is the process to be followed? And where will the impact assessments take place? Along the riverbank, is that where they're going to focus? In the footprint for the proposed road, the realignment, if you will, that is the area that could hold the greatest presence of Métis artifacts. Most important, will the Public Service confirm that during the assessment, they will include the participation and representation on site from Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dene, Dakota peoples, and of course, the Métis Nation? Will the Public Service allow all the neighborhood to be heard? Will the Public Service provide a complete traffic study going all the way back to Wellington Crescent and Academy through to Park? That's the assessment that needs to be done. This is happening too quick and too soon. They changed the game. They changed the game. And I'm asking you to consider the consequences of you voting yes. At the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Chair, you and we all do, we recognize proudly that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the homeland of the Métis Nation. And I'm asking you to be truthful to those words. Voting opposed to this motion is ignoring the true meaning of those very words. As a Métis myself, I'm asking for unanimous support of this motion to press pause and allow the proper archaeological study to be introduced and completed. Thanks.
Colleagues, any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Councillor Klein, for your presentation.
All right, it was a bit long. I understand that, and I thank you for putting up with the time. Just so you know, they completely ignored what I said. The Public Service said, "Oh no, we're going to watch. When we dig it up, we'll take a look and make sure there's no artifacts in there." This is exactly what this archaeologist, an expert, said. Don't do. Do it properly. Don't we? Isn't it hypocritical? Am I the only one who thinks it's hypocritical to start everything, every speech, every meeting that we have for the city of Winnipeg by acknowledging that we're on Treaty 1 territory, the birthplace, the homeland of the Métis Nation, yet completely ignore what could be under the ground? Either we're going to acknowledge the fact that this was Métis land and Cree and First Nations and Treaty 1, and respect the land and take the time to do the proper archaeological assessment, or just stop saying it. Can't have it both ways. It will not receive the attention and care, and the residents will not have an opportunity to speak any further. Doesn't mean I'll stop. I have a few tricks up my hand. Stay tuned. They're coming.